Welcome to another edition of MoxieTalk, where we give you an intimate look into the courage, character, and defining moments of today's most inspiring individuals. I'm Kirt Jacobs, host of MoxieTalk, where previous guests have included leaders from the world of politics, business, culinary, sports, entertainment, art, law, community activism, and philanthropy. Today, our 472nd guest in our series, we welcome Alli Truttman. She's the founder and CEO of Wicked Technologies, a smart bedding company based in Louisville, Kentucky. And the company's first product, Wicked Sheets, earned the coveted title of, quote, Best in Sheets Cooling, unquote, award by Good Housekeeping, and then Truttman won a spot selling her product on QVC. And Truttman pivoted the company's core product focus after suffering supply chain disruption during the pandemic and promptly began R&D on washable smart incontinence pads. The Wicked Smart Pad was originally designed to meet the needs of her aging grandmother who suffered issues related to incontinence and bed sores. And Wicked Technologies has been awarded a $490,000 grant funding from the NIH, which is the National Institute of Health, and the Commonwealth of Kentucky to continue developing the Wicked Smart Pad. And Wicked Technologies recently closed an equity round of $1.7 million, not too shabby, to advance the Wicked Smart Pad. Alli holds degrees from Bellarmine University and the University of Louisville and is an adjunct professor of psychology at Bellarmine University. Welcome, Alli. And although you are our 472nd guest, you are our very first guest in this new studio at Metro TV Studios in downtown Louisville. Welcome.
Thank you, and the space is beautiful. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. It's hard to, you're kind of like a gnat to corner you and get you in a chair. It's really great that you're here. So what drives you to excel, or who drives you to excel? It's a pretty unique space that you're in. You've been, as I say, successful in sweat. I hope I didn't take a line away from you, but what drives you to do this?
Yeah, so I've always considered myself very fortunate to have great leaders in my parents. Mm-hmm. My dad was in business, so I got my first exposure to sales and marketing via him. And my mom is a nurse. She was a labor and delivery nurse. And so I saw the caretaker side every single day growing up. And then I saw my dad, who got to go to business meetings and wear a suit and have a briefcase. Right. And I think they're examples of being successful and taking risks in your career, but also being very caretaking along the way has really led me to this career path as the CEO and founder of Wicked Technologies.
Well, who do you credit most influential in your life, Alli? And it can be more than one, personal or professional.
Sure. So I always think about my third grade teacher. Her name was Ronnie Jurasek, Mrs. Jurasek. And for some reason, third grade was instrumental in my development. Maybe it was the first friendships I was developing, but I remember my education path changing, like really learning multiplication tables and using music to learn. And I think that's when I really became interested in education, mm-hmm. but also different methods of educating people who learn differently. And so I'm sure we'll talk about it, some of the extracurricular things I'm involved in involve learning differently. And I think that's also carried into my business approach and how I like to educate my customers a little differently mm-hmm. as well.
What do you consider to be your most defining moment in your life, Alli? And again, it can be more than one, personal or professional.
On the personal side of things, my mother actually was in a very tragic car accident when I was in kindergarten. She is A-okay. She's walking around now, but I had just gotten dropped off at my grandparents' house, and a fire truck ran a red light in a false alarm storm, and the fire engine driver actually was on suspension at that time. And so he shouldn't have been on the road at all. And my mom was just going to her job to go and help people as a nurse, and he ran a red light, hit her going 80 miles an hour in her vehicle. And
so he T-boned her?
T-boned her, and she was in the hospital for a year.
Oh my
so
God.
As a young child, to see your mother not only be hurt, but also not be with you day in and day out. And we really relied on a lot of family members to take care of my brother and myself. And they somehow maintained our ability to be involved in sports. Wow. We never missed a day of school, and we were always taken care of with a warm meal on the table. And as a child, I was always reminded of it. But as an adult, when you really look back at how pivotal or instrumental that was in my development, I say that always makes me gracious for the things that we have, because things can change on a dime.
Yeah, once you have your own children, your perspective really changes as a fellow human.
Absolutely.
It totally changes.
Absolutely. My 2-year-old, every day, I look at him when I walk outside of the classroom and I say, mommy loves you and I will see you tonight. Like I just think of that moment. I'm like, if something were to happen, if I have this picture in my head, I just always want to make sure that I am gracious for that moment and try to be cautious.
That's what we always do. We walk out the door, love you.
Yeah.
Because you never know.
Absolutely.
You never know.
Life is precious.
What do you consider to be your biggest professional triumph? And again, it can be personal as well. It could be more than one.
Yeah, so when I started my business, I like to tell people I was a naive entrepreneur. I just thought there are no roadblocks. We are going to start this business and onward we go.
Right.
And they're like, oh, manufacturing contracts. I'm like, we can figure that out later.
Right.
Certain things that you just don't think are going to be problems, if you will, or business cliches. I'm like, I won't ever have to experience that. And then as your business grows and as your company iterates new products and it gets bigger, you experience new challenges along the way.
Yes.
So I will say, in my business life, it has always been poignant that I have to very fast say when I'm not strong in something. So staff your weaknesses or admit when you're not strong in something so you can get the help you need. And so I've been very fortunate to be surrounded by people in the business community, the Louisville business community in particular, who have always offered me great advice and told me what to steer clear of, and if I was going to fail fast so that we could pivot.
What do you consider to be the most challenging life lesson you've ever learned? And I heard some things when I met you at Rotary, and I've known you before that. But
yeah, I will tell you, in business, I have had a lot of times that have actually put me into the emergency room, making me think I was having a heart attack because the stress level gets so high. That's just one of those things that they always tell you, like, you're going to be an entrepreneur, everything will be great. And then you're like, actually, everything is not sunshine and rainbows all the time. But I was very fortunate to win a pitch competition that put me onto QVC. It was going to be the Home Shopping Network, but then QVC purchased them. And the series of events that I had to go through to get onto that television show quite literally put me into the hospital twice, thinking that I was having heart palpitations. It was anything from the financial stress of we have to pay these bills in order to get our inventory, all the way up to what if we don't make our shipping and delivery deadline? They're not going to put me on the air, and all of this money is a sunk cost. And you're really hoping on really high revenue dollars in those instances. So I would say my dealings with QVC, and by no fault of QVC, this is just the nature of business, probably were some of the most challenging business moments and instrumental challenges I've experienced as a founder.
And I was going to bring up that also your background in child psychology, you actually help facilitate when the opportunity presents itself with Wicked Technologies, that you allow them to help out with the making of materials. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah.
That's great.
So when I left the field of child psychology, I was doing in-home therapy for children with autism or diagnosed along the autism spectrum. And when I left that, after I had pretty good indication that the business was going well, I wanted to figure out a way to continue impacting the autism communities, particularly locally. And one of the things that I noted is that a lot of the children who age out of traditional schools or day programs, we don't have a lot of job opportunities for them. And so the Bluegrass Center for Autism has an adult campus, and they were looking for places to do vocational skills training. And so thankfully, our warehouse and fulfillment center, we have plenty of space, and every Tuesday afternoon we have students come over from Bluegrass Center for Autism, and they do vocational training. So we're either cutting and measuring, we're sorting scraps. We're a zero waste facility at Wicked Sheets, so we make sure that all of our scraps are usable for future products, and they help us do a lot of that. And it's great and rewarding for them and their parents knowing that they get to come to a job.
And how many roughly do you?
We have 3 typically every Tuesday, and they always have a one-on-one aide with them or a leader of their vocational training program. And oftentimes, we've made them part of the team. We give them a shirt at Christmas, and they're so proud to be a part of a team. And I just want to offer that opportunity as often as we can. I also challenge other business owners to do the same, because it's very little things that affect us as business owners that are huge impacts in their lives.
It's kind of like what I always say. It's really big in your kids' world, whatever the problem is, and to you, it's smaller. But yes, absolutely. Absolutely. What do you consider to be the biggest risk you've ever taken, Alli? I have an idea. Again, it could be more than one, personal, professional.
Ooh, I would say most recently, the pivot to this Wicked Smart Pad, which is a new product that we've launched. We've been doing Wicked Sheets historically,
Right.
which is our moisture-wicking and cooling bed sheet line, for now our 16th year. And during the pandemic, we were facing some pretty significant challenges with supply chain and how do I keep my team locally employed when there were so many unknowns. And I had a wild hair to basically experiment with a pad that I developed in 2017 for my grandmother who passed away of incontinence-related bed sores. And so going to your investors when you've been selling sheets for, at the time it was 13 years, and saying, I think I have a new product idea. It's a totally different market and it involves technology. Do you guys trust me? That was really, really risky. And I had to make sure I had my ducks in a row, basically, essentially write a new business plan and present it to them and say, I will de-risk this for you guys if you let me, apply for a grant and raise some money. So that was pretty risky most recently.
What do you think it is about I'll call it the bed sheet industry? Why was there such a gap? And that you were able to fill, because this is not we've been dealing with this since the dawn of man, arguably,
Right.
or human beings. I'm just curious, where was the disconnect? You've heard it in other industries, like Sarah Blakely with Spanx, or, it's just this obvious thing that no one just ever thought to fix.
Right. As with most things, there are, I would say, a spectrum of low end and high end. And I was 24 when I started Wicked Sheets, and all I was accustomed to were like $14 to $30 sheets you could buy at Walmart or Target,
Right.
or you could go and get something very high end like a linen flax. Belgian linen flax was like $400.
Right.
And neither of them were fitting my needs. And as a 24-year-old, I certainly couldn't pay $350 for a set of sheets. So really the gap was the technology and athletic wear that I had grown up playing soccer in. So think Adidas Climacool and Nike Dry Fit and Under Armour. There was nothing being utilized outside of like golf shirts and athletic wear. And I thought if we could innovate in the bedroom,
Right.
using those performance fabrics for a performance activity like sleep, that would address so many issues. Like I was suffering from night sweats as a result of hyperhidrosis. And when I started doing my competitive landscape analysis, there was really nothing out there outside of that cotton, traditional cotton, or very expensive. And so we really believe we tapped into an untapped market, and we found that gap in bed sheets, of all things.
So on the flip side of that, what do you consider to be your biggest mistake or regret or disappointment, if you will, in your human journey so far? Again, it could be personal or professional.
I would say on the professional side of things, and this is probably personal as well, it goes back to that naivete of being a young entrepreneur. I didn't think people in business would take advantage of young entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And I made the mistake of ordering fabric from a supplier who I didn't have a written contract with them. And when I was ordering my first bolts of fabric, I was getting it shipped to my one-bedroom apartment and rolling it out on the floor and cutting it, and it arrives to you all bagged up. Well, when I rolled it out on my bedroom floor to start cutting it, I noticed that there were footprints and oil stains all over the fabric. And as a first-time buyer of fabrics, $12,000 was a lot of money for fabric that you're hoping to turn into sheets. And so I called the supplier and I said, what's the recourse? 40% of this is damaged. And they're like, sorry, we don't really have a return policy. We're not going to take it back. Must have happened during manufacturing, or if somebody was rolling it up. We can't really tell you when that happened. So it's just a sunk cost. So I learned my very first lesson about having signed contracts in place and making sure your attorney, even if it's someone that's not an expensive attorney, looks at it to make sure you know what you're signing and getting yourself into.
That never happened again, I bet.
Never happened again. Never happened again. But
So what's the best piece of advice, Alli, that's ever been given to you? And again, it can be more than one, personal or professional.
I would say if it's more than one. Professionally, the first investor I took on said to me, kid, you can't work on your business when you're working in your business. And that he was referencing when I was literally rolling the fabric out myself, cutting it, driving all over town to find seamstresses to sew it for me, then shipping it and boxing it. And I saw an immediate change when I took myself out of that role of the doer and became the strategizer and the overseer and the visionary that you hope a CEO can be. So I saw an immediate change there. And then something that my dad taught me, he said to me on my last day of my collegiate soccer career, he said, just leave it all on the field. And that is what I hope to do with this business. Like, I won't walk away from it until I've left every stone unturned.
Right.
You know, I want to make sure, or leave no stone unturned. So
Right.
I want to make sure I put it all out there, have exhausted every option, and try to get the best return for my investors who have believed in me along the way. And that is something that I've made a promise to them, but I make a promise to myself to leave it all on the field.
That's great. That's the only way it should be. Go big or go home. I have that in my office.
Oh, I love that. Yes, I
It's
love
the only
that.
way to fly, you know. What was the aha moment? You may have kind of spoke to it, you know, when it just hit you. I know what mine was for this show, but the interviews with you, the MoxieTalk, you know, where it just totally changed the trajectory of your life. You may have spoken to it, but maybe if you can go into a little more depth with it.
Sure. When I first started the business, I was blogging about my night sweats and the issues I was experiencing with current bedding solutions, current sheets on the market. And once you started telling that story, there are more and more people who say, well, you know, I have night sweats, but it's because of menopause. I have night sweats because of cancer. And so we started building this like blog audience, and come to find out, it was called search engine optimization, and I'm building SEO content, and I didn't even realize it.
Right.
I just was trying to get the word out in an organic way. And because we were successful early on with some of that blog content, we started getting orders that were outside of my friends and family. And I will distinctly remember this fact for the rest of my life. We got an order from a lady in Pennsylvania, and I picked up the phone and I was like, well, so you must know my mom or dad, right? That's why you ordered? And they're like, no, I found you online because of something you wrote about. And I was like, we've made it. There are people buying this.
Right?
Yeah, there are people buying this product that we don't know.
Yeah.
And that's also the beauty of the internet too, and direct to consumer sales and e-commerce sales. If you know what you're doing, and quite honestly, I didn't know exactly what I was doing, but we've perfected it along the way.
Sure.
And you know how to speak to your customer, and you know exactly what your customer is looking for and that pain point that they are in, whether it be sheets, whether it be they're trying to find a restaurant. If you can put the information out there in front of them at the time that they need it most, they will buy all day long. That's the same for it's the same for every industry. And so we just made sure that we were saying what was very important to our customer when they were experiencing, you know, their pain point, which was, I have disrupted sleep and that's ruining my day, or I have interrupted sleep and it's ruining my partner's day. And so we really tapped into that problem statement and said, there is a solution, and it's actually affordable. And I think a lot of people that were first buying from us were so tired of getting medications or other prescriptions for night sweats or hot flashes or inability to self-cool. And when you offer a product that they might try at a low cost, it's a low barrier to entry. So I just remember that woman in Pennsylvania, and that really was my aha moment, and it led to this domino effect of, here's what we need to do for our customers.
So what is it like to be Alli Truttman? I mean, you're high energy. I think anyone watching this, that's a fair assessment. Every time I've seen you, you're always in a good mood.
Oh, thanks.
Very passionate about what you do. But what I always say, what's it like when knowing the cameras aren't, you know, it's you know, getting ready in the morning or whatever, you know, what's it like to be you?
That is a great question. I will tell you, the time that I find myself most deep in thought and reflective is when I'm alone, which I don't like to do very often, but it is something as an adult I've had to really schedule time, because I find that my most creative moments are when I'm alone. So my parents still live in Southern Illinois, St. Louis area. It's about a 4-hour drive from here. And if I'm ever by myself driving, there are times where I will look up and be like, oh my gosh, I haven't had the radio on. We're about to run out of gas. And all I've been doing is thinking, right? Yeah. So on the outside, I seem busy and excitable and things like that. And it's probably always going on the inside too, but I don't get to reflect on that unless I'm alone. So I think I am absolutely passionate. I love to exude happiness, because I do believe in like that pay it forward model of, you can change someone's day just by saying hi to them if they've had a bad day. So I think about that, but I absolutely also have bad days and want to sit at home and drink a glass of wine and watch a reality TV show. So there just has to be a balance of those. But on the majority side, I like to be, you know, gracious and kind and try and increase joy in someone's day if I can.
What do you feel people get wrong about you, Alli? You know, do you ever feel misunderstood?
This is actually a great question also, and it's twofold. When I was younger, I kept getting the, you're so happy, you're so kind, that like everybody thought maybe I was flighty or that I was aloof. And it really started to bother me when I got into the professional roles, because then that kind of translated into maybe she's not equipped to do this.
Right.
And I felt like I always had to basically, say where my degrees were from, and like, listen, I have a master's degree. I'm no slouch. Like,
right,
people are
yeah.
trusting me with their children. I've built a business.
Yeah.
But I think the happy exterior and the like passion and peacekeeper kind of personality leads people to think that maybe I'm not so serious.
Right.
And so I've gotten a little bit of a chip on my shoulder when people, basically don't give me credit for what I've done.
Right.
And so I find myself sometimes leading with that. And I'm like, Allie, that's not necessary. Like, they'll realize it about you. But after time, that really does start to bother you. It personally bothered me over the years. So I just like to make sure people know that I have been to school, that I am that I'm smart and talented, that I've done a lot of things. But just because I'm happy doesn't mean that I'm like flighty or aloof. And
right.
Yeah,
don't underestimate me. It just motivates me.
Yes.
That's what I always
Yes.
say, because that's just the way, I'm cheerful, affable, but there's also another side,
Yeah.
So I can fully relate to what you're talking about. So Allie, I've been watching you from afar, and we're filming this several years, and of course it'll air forever digitally after a major global pandemic. You're one of the few people, we don't really know each other. I don't get to spend a lot of time with guests before they come on. That I thought, if there's anyone that I think can weather this storm, it's going to be her, and it's going to be interesting to see how she comes out of the other side of it. Because I do look into, not everybody's able to. There's a lot of reasons why you're sitting in the seat. You're an achiever. You can articulate your story. So it's not just everyone that can come on the program, because it's got to be good for the viewers, etc. So I just wanted to mention to you that I thought it was really exciting to see you weather that storm. And then also I want to back up a little bit pre-COVID, the pandemic, about how your experience with QVC and Home Shopping Network. And for those of other younger generations that may not know, that was kind of like our eBay, our Amazon years ago, before the internet and smartphones were in everyone's hands. So
Yeah. So again, wild hair.
Yeah.
Most things in my life start with a wild hair. I had just raised a little bit of money, and I told my investors, if we're going to really blow this thing up, we need to get in front of our largest audience. And although I had hoped it was people like me with hyperhidrosis, it's really menopausal women. And we knew everything we did about our customer, and we knew that menopausal woman most likely watched the Home Shopping Network or QVC. It was that demographic, the income was there. And so I applied for a pitch competition. It was hosted by Mark Zuckerberg's sister, Randy, and she's lovely. And I will never forget this. I drew the last straw on the last day to be the last pitch presentation. And I'm like, this could go one of two ways. It's either going to go really poorly or really well, because they're going to be exhausted, and I can come in with my, with my pizzazz and win them over. They said, no touching the host. You have 3 minutes. You stand over here. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, well, she's selling a tea in these little Christian Louboutins. I'm like, she's toast. This guy's got barbecue sauce in a bag. It's probably pretty good, but not ready, not commercially ready.
Yeah.
He's got a light up toilet. I'm like, that's probably good competition. And I couldn't remember, I can't even remember the other one, but I remember that 3 minutes goes by, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I am now up with Randy Zuckerberg, feeling the pillow, and I walk away and I'm like, if I don't win that thing, then I retire. Like, I'm calling it. Sure enough, I ended up winning a spot on what was then HSN, and then QVC purchased them. So I had raised that money. I spent all the money to build that inventory. QVC tells me I have to renegotiate my contract. They're not doing the deal with Randy anymore. I have to go through a buyer, and in fact, they're gonna buy more. So I end up having to take a loan because I needed money fast, but I had a PO in hand for nearly $300,000, and I thought, this is how the business is going to win. Like, this is it. So I talked to my investors, look at the competitive landscape, what are our options? And we went on 6 times. I made $6,000 a minute. It was great. I followed MyPillow. So Mike Lindell was on with me. I was with Catherine Zeta-Jones. I was with Martha Stewart. So I got to live out my dream. And I go on my first vacation, and it was around Christmas, and QVC's calling, and they say, your price on your website's not as low as ours. You need to take that down. And I'm going, that's not a part of the deal. How am I supposed to sustain my business? I'm not just using QVC as my only channel. And we had to make a really tough decision. While I'm literally in a bikini, in a lobby, on a phone with spotty internet service. I'm going,
Sure.
I just took my first vacation in years, and now this QVC deal is bust. So it was sunshine and rainbows for maybe 2 minutes, and then it was, thought you're having a heart attack beforehand to get there. Enjoy the moment, but as soon as success happens, you literally need to put that in your rearview mirror and move on to the next challenge, which is what happened. And then we had, I'm sure I'm going to answer your next question. We had to basically figure out what we were going to do with the rest of that inventory. We had some at our other manufacturer.
Excuse me, what year was that roughly?
That was 2018.
Okay, so for
just
those that
before.
don't know, it was about a year or two before
Yes.
the pandemic. Go ahead.
So we're 6 to 8 months fast forwarded, and we have this other inventory. We need to put it on a boat to get over to our other customers, because we're going to try to revamp the website and rebuild those sales and make up for lost time that we kind of had bet on QVC. And we put our stuff on a boat, and it ends up being one of those ones that the drones were hovering over on Long Beach, and it sat there for 3 months. So I had built this team. I had 7 people working with me at the warehouse off of Newburgh Road, and I didn't know what to do. And I know lots of founders experience this as well. You send your first email out to your customers. They're completely understanding at first, but after a month, then you send another one, not so understanding. A second month, very much so not understanding. Your team is kind of looking like, how are we going to do this? And we had figured out, we had all this scrap fabric that our students with autism had sorted for us.
This
we
is
had
beautiful.
tons of elastic.
Yeah.
And we started going, well, masks seem to be this thing. Should we start making masks? I'm getting chills talking about it, actually.
Yeah.
And I talked to my team, I talked to my investors, and they're like, if there's a Hail Mary, let's throw it up and let's try it. So we did $150,000 worth of mask sales in the first day.
Jeez.
We got a national contract with the National Guard because we had been doing the military beige for a different project for sheets for them.
Wow.
So they approved it. We had a certification that was asthma allergy friendly. We asked them if we could use that same mark and testing that we had done, scientific testing, on the face mask, because everyone was very concerned with like, what's the micron level? And ours were just comfortable, because if someone's putting their naked body on it, they're certainly going to be fine putting their naked face on it.
Right.
And we knew enough about the elastics, and we had very soft elastics. We were just very poised for success in that small pivot. So we were off to the races, and then they started imposing restrictions. We got some government passes on that, but we actually got the community of sewers locally involved, because a lot of people weren't able to collect unemployment early on. So we started sending sewing boxes to local sewers that had a scissors, some mask material, and we could allow them to use their home sewing machines or just cut it. Had a prepaid shipping label, because we could do all of that in our warehouse, and they're sending it back. So we became truly like a mask operation.
Wow.
Overnight. Shipping was really, really challenging, and getting shift work was really challenging. We had to outfit the warehouse where all of our sewing machines were 6 feet apart. I had to do breaks differently. It was wild, but we lived for a little while.
Right.
And then masks started dying off, and all the big companies started doing it, and PPE started coming in off of those boats. And I'm like, what's our plan B? We still don't have our fabric.
Right.
And go back to 2017, think about my grandmother. Always a customer is at the heart of my decisions. And I thought, well, we've got this pad that I created back in 2017 for incontinence using our sheet fabric. Again, we had scrap available. Let's try and keep our team employed and figure out if we can make this pad work. So we had a multi-layer, highly absorbent incontinence pad. We had 5 bed sizes in our warehouse. We fit 1 to every bed size, and we had written a patent on that back in 2017. And so I thought, how can we make this better? How can we actually make this come to life? Add some technology, and the Wicked Smart Pad was born. So.
I love it. But the reason why I wanted you to go through that is the resilience, the moxie, the not giving up, the pushing through. I mean, a lot of people would not have made it through that, and they'd be talking about how, would have been, could have been, should have been. And then that's why I wanted you to share that, because if somebody sees that you and I'll never meet, we're paying it forward, and they'll get a nugget to keep on going, whatever it might be, personal, professional. So now I love to get into what I call the dessert part of the MoxieTalk, the interview. You've been gracious enough to give us some pictures, so I'm going to hold them up. This is where I heard you speak. I knew of you before this. I'm a member of Rotary, and you were very passionate and very energetic. on a subject matter that's not the most exciting, especially during lunchtime.
Sure, yeah, let's talk about bodily fluids during lunch.
Exactly. And this is Kevin Lynch, the current president. And then here you are, and this is, you just spoke to it a moment ago. Tell us what's going on. This is your grandmother.
That is Shirley, this beautiful woman.
Yes.
And my grandfather actually wearing his World War II veteran outfit behind him in the picture. So she was, this was probably a couple months before she passed away, highly incontinent, and was sitting on disposable underpads on all of the surfaces in her assisted living facility. And she was the inspiration for the Wicked Smart Pad, wanting to make her more comfortable and stay cool and dry.
That's great. And who's this wicked little fella?
That's my son, Owen.
Nice.
So we started Wicked Little Sleepers in 2016 to address all the dribbles and drools and sweat that babies experience, but we want to keep them cool and dry too.
So this must have been your first business card?
Yep.
I love how the evolution. I appreciate you sharing that with us. And how did you come up with that? I know it's not that now. But.
So it's supposed to be, Fleur-de-lis, of course, nod to Louisville, but it's supposed to be the sheet. And our logo now, which you'll see, is actually the effect of when someone is taking a sheet and putting it onto the bed. We wanted to have that airiness, but wicked is, play on words. It wicks away moisture, but they're wicked cool is what we like to say.
And then this is where you are, the color.
Today.
Cool.
Yep.
Very good.
So again, cooling, worked a lot on the branding to always stay cool, dry, refreshing, but exude like that playfulness.
And this is, I believe, a nice headshot of you. You're at a venture competition. Is that what this is?
Actually, that is one of my headshots from a new investment partner.
Okay.
So Alleviate Ventures has invested in me, and they did that headshot for us.
And I'll just leave this to the audience's imagination, but you can tell the backstory.
So we had scheduled.
I love this photo, actually. It's great.
Thank you. We had scheduled a photo shoot where we had paid our fee up front for 2 days of photo shoots for our new mattress line, the Wicked Cool mattress. And that morning, the model that we had hired had food poisoning, and she said, I can't come. I know, it's the worst. You can't make this up. You can't make it up. And so the photographer looked at me, he's like, well, we're already here, kid. What are we going to do? He's like, what size are you? Sure enough, he says, you're going to go be the model for today because we're going to do this shoot. We had, all the equipment's there. I mean, and getting 5 mattresses on site somewhere was a logistics nightmare. And I'm like, we're going to do this. So I became the model for the day.
See, you're always solving problems. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
Now, what's going on here? This looks like QVC.
Yep, that was my first airing of QVC. So
is this the heart palpitation period?
That was, that was the culmination of it. I had the biggest glass of white wine afterwards. And that was one of my airings, yes.
That's
and
great.
That host, she's incredible. She knows how to speak menopause, that's for sure.
I love it. And this is some of your co-workers, it looks like?
Yeah, that was our first technology. So we partnered with a researcher at the University of Louisville, Cindy Harnett. She's brilliant, brilliant beyond her years. And that was one of the first sensors we put in the Wicked Smart Pad to detect moisture.
Are you at a convention here, or what is this?
That's actually at our warehouse. We did another filming with a television show, and that was the host, and they had me do the zaniest things in the warehouse.
Gotcha.
It was great.
That's cool. And then here you are at a competition, it looks like. Can you explain what's going on here?
Yeah, I just won the 5 across pitch competition with Awesome Inc. And that win was $55,000 of investment, but also in the audience that day, 2 of my now investors who equated up to about $750,000 of investment saw that pitch, and that was when I was pitching the Wicked Smart Pad.
They saw this, your energy, your excitement. That's what they saw. I love it. And then it looks like this looks like a convention or conference.
Yeah, so that was actually with the National Institute of Health. So we received a grant, with the NIH, and that was them filming me doing a demonstration of the Wicked Smart Pad. And that is my best friend. She's the National Care Director of Atria Senior Living, and that's where all of our pilots of the pad have been.
Smart friend to have in what you do.
Oh, yes. That's a deployment, our first deployment ever of the Wicked Smart Pad in an assisted living facility in Great Neck, New York. So we deployed 200 pads in their facility that day.
And this is the serious side you talked about earlier that people don't see a lot.
We call it behind the seams. So we're always sweating behind the seams on computers, doing the things to make everything on the outside look cool, calm, and collected.
And you're so good and calm and cool and collected. You won 2019. Today's Woman.
Yes.
So that's great. I love it. Thank you for sharing those. I really appreciate it. So Ellie, the show's about leadership, role models, inspirational figures. Can you define leadership, or in your case, entrepreneurship, in one word in the great English lexicon? But maybe in your case, you need a phrase or two, which is fine.
I think it's passion and compassion.
Okay.
That should be in every leader's lexicon, because you can't relate to your customers without it, can't relate to your team without it. And I really think that most successful businesses or companies, corporations, have a passionate leader who is also able to be compassionate with their teams and their customers.
Like, so passionate and compassionate, the two. I like that. What do you say if someone asks you, what is your why? You know, what motivates you when nobody's looking? You know, I kind of call it the road work, as Muhammad Ali, the GOAT, used to say, you know, the stuff that nobody sees you doing.
Sure. I like to solve problems,
Yeah, I can
whether
tell.
it be with products, which is, you know, how I make a living now, but I like to solve problems. I thought I wanted to be a psychologist for life, and it turns out I just now am a therapist using products.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I offer aid in
Yeah.
something that I create, and so I think that is truly my why.
So if someone were to ask you, Alli, what is the single most positive contribution you've made to humanity, or maybe you haven't yet, what might that be and why? I've got an idea, but I don't want to answer.
I have a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
I like to just leave little impacts where I can.
Yeah.
I really hope to impact the autism community in a big way, but I also just hope to inspire other entrepreneurs who maybe feel like they have an idea or a business and are too afraid to take a plunge.
Sure.
You know, there are times in our lives where it's okay to be risky.
Yeah.
And so I tell young entrepreneurs, like, this is the time to do it. But I also encourage people who are leaving careers who have been like, I've had this idea for 20 years and I can't shake it. Give it a try.
Yeah.
What's the worst thing that can happen?
Right.
Now, obviously, I'm not saying go into debt over it or
Right.
take bad loans or make bad decisions, but within financial reason,
Right.
what's the harm in trying it? And if
Exactly.
you get feedback really fast, you can fail fast and pivot, or
That's
always
true.
go back to your degree or what it is you did before.
So what keeps you motivated? I mean, the thing I find fascinating about your personality and your origin story is you get knocked down and you get back up. You know, a lot of people, you get knocked down 2 or 3 times and they take it and rationalize it that I wasn't supposed to do that, whatever that journey might have been. But with you, it just, you never stopped, and that's why the company exists today. What is that? I mean, is it beyond the passion and compassion, or is it competitive? I don't want to answer it for you.
Oh no, I think I'm competitive by nature. You know, growing up as an athlete, absolutely competitive. And I've got that little kind of like small but mighty complex that my mom has. She's small but mighty nurse. You know, she's literally a tiny little labor and delivery nurse helping 300-pound women deliver babies.
But you mentioned, you know, a year in the hospital from her accident. That speaks a lot to her resilience. I mean,
Yeah.
that's huge.
I think competitiveness, I think resilience is important, but also I am investor backed. I mentioned that, and I appreciate and want to show my investors that they believed in me, and thus I need to believe in myself in order to keep going. And I want to give them a return. I want to have a big exit in my business, not to be rich and famous, you know, all
Right.
that stuff. That does not inspire me. Would it be great? Absolutely.
Sure,
But
right.
I want to be a woman of my word, and I want to inspire other people in my actions and resilience.
What makes you smile? I like to ask that question of people with high energy.
Right now, my little boy.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I have a 2-year-old son, and he is everything, and just getting to witness the world through
Yeah.
his eyes and all of the newness.
Yeah.
It makes you appreciate and think about when you were a kid and when things
Yeah.
were safe and fun and we didn't have all those worries.
Yeah.
So I think about that. I get nostalgic, but I also love to laugh. So
Sure.
I find so many things humorous in the world, and I think that just helps. I really believe that laughter is medicine. Exercise is also medicine. So
Well, you know, my parents thought something was wrong with me when I was little. It's not my interview because I laughed all the time. About, like, in the middle of nowhere, I just started laughing. And they're like, everything turned out okay. But so could you describe in detail a particular scenario or instance where you utilized your own philosophy on leadership? You know, some guests like to tie it back to the leadership question. You had mentioned passion and compassion. It doesn't have to be that, but some people like to do that.
sure, I think the greatest example of when I noticed myself going from a like novice entrepreneur to an actual leader in my business was that COVID scenario that I mentioned, where we were building a great team and, you know, kind of on the cusp of something large, we thought, and then the wind got pulled out of our sails. And I had to think about these people and their families needing to make money. I had to think about the investors that had given us money. And then we've got all these things at our disposal right now. And at the time, no one knew what to do. We can't get supplies to keep people safe. We don't know if this thing is on the chair,
Right.
So you kind of have to do your community part too. And I felt at that moment that was probably, or retrospectively, that was probably when I emerged as a new leader in my entrepreneurial journey.
What do you think Alli Truttman stands for? When nobody's looking, not how they may perceive you, but what do you stand for?
That is so hard to answer.
It's okay.
I guess I stand for believing in yourself, taking risks, knowing what your weaknesses are, and being able to be cautiously optimistic at every turn.
Because for me as a fellow human observing you, you're very outgoing, so am I, but we approach things differently in the short time I've been around you. What I find fascinating, you've taken a very unattractive line of business and made it fun. And I think that's really fascinating. I think it would be fun to work with you on those sheets. I know that it would be odd if I didn't know you to say that. And so I think that's an interesting observation of your energy level and passion.
Yeah, I think I also see opportunities where people are afraid to maybe take risks with branding in particular. In the sheet business, like you said, it's like sheets are kind of boring, and sheets are where your skin cells go, and they go in your bed, and usually they're under a pretty comforter. So in order to really let my personality shine through, I guess I have become the sweaty sheets girl over time, and that's fine. I love that. So maybe that's what Alli Truttman stands for, the sweaty sheets girl.
There we go.
But I also see that now as we're entering the healthcare world, there is very limited opportunity for people to take risks. And the FDA is actually a marketing, agency. It is making sure that your marketing claims protect the humans that are using the products.
Right.
And they don't say you can't use a fun purple color. They don't say that's a no-no in healthcare. And so call it risky, but we are using some very fun branding in our Wicked Smart Pad, which absorbs pee, for lack of a better description.
So true.
It gets peed and sometimes pooped on.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that that's not scary or gross anymore. So we're going to use branding, and I think, our messaging to our customers to try and excite or innovate again in a space that is typically just blasé.
We're coming along at a time in human history with artificial intelligence, and of course the internet's everywhere all over the world. We've got computers in our hands. What used to be televisions are now, in our hands instead of in our living rooms. Do you think there could be another Alli Truttman come along in a line of work and do what you have done, even though it's in the fairly recent past? Do you think there's always that opportunity, or do you think it's getting different?
Is this a question about simulation theory? No.
I don't know. Right? Well, hey, answer whatever you want.
No. I sure hope so. And I hope someone does it 1,000 times better than me, and fails even faster and learns and teaches. I really do. I really hope that none of this happens in a silo. I hope that this is not just the one shot. I hope that a lot of people who have personalities like mine take risks and can teach others, because I know I'm doing lots of things wrong, right? I know that there's no perfect entrepreneur. There's no perfect path. Success is literally in the rearview mirror the second it happens, and I hope that there are thousands of iterations of me or business folks like myself that come along the way.
So Alli, I'm excited to ask this question because you're so high energy, and you had mentioned earlier in one of the questions you answered that you didn't get to take a lot of vacations. So you're driving your own bus or flying your own plane, and whatever little cliche you want to use, and you are the CEO, so you can make this decision, I would say, for yourself. But if you were granted yourself 2 weeks, 14 calendar days, 10 business days, money's no object, so we can get through that aspect. Where do you go? What do you do? Who do you take with you? Ideally, technology's not center stage because it goes with us everywhere.
This has been on my bucket list. I hope one day I get to go to Croatia.
Really?
Yes. So, and I've been to Europe plenty of times, but I have been fascinated with their ability to experience all these different climates in one. You have your lakes, you have your beaches, you can go hiking, you can go biking.
Oh, I never thought of that. Okay.
Vacation for me, I love the idea of resting and reading a book, but as you can tell, I sit down for maybe 3 hours and I'm either asleep in 2 seconds reading my book, or I'm ready to get up and do something. So
Right.
I like the places that are beautiful and have great food and have that relaxing vibe or culture. The ability to go wander in a farmer's market in a sleepy little European town, wonderful. But I also want to be able to go and hike or
Right.
bike or go on in the ocean or play in the beach.
Now, do you go by yourself? Take kiddo with
The
you?
fam,
Yeah.
oh yeah. I mean, my family is everything,
Yeah.
and I would love to bring the fam, but like the extended fam. I don't
Sure.
want to. My husband likes to sit and read. This is why we are great, right? We are absolute opposites. He likes to sit and relax. Well, me and my son are going to be going. So
That's great. That's great. So if you alone could have dinner with anyone living or deceased, who would it be and why? And it doesn't have to be someone famous. It's important to you. And then I also ask, what kind of dinner? Is it a buffet? Is it 10 or 12 people? Is there liquor or no liquor? What kind of give us a feel, gives a real insight into you as a person, how you view the world, I think.
always alcohol.
Okay, well, there you go.
Unless you're not a drinker.
Amen.
No,
Right.
no harm there. But
Right.
I think that always, you can just tell when it just starts to hit, it gets a little louder, people
Yep.
get a little more daring, humor starts to increase.
Yeah.
But that's just my personal preference, obviously. Fine with total no drinking.
Yeah.
You are going to laugh when I tell you this.
Okay.
It will also include cigars because I would
wow.
love to invite Sigmund Freud to
Oh my
lunch.
God.
And it
That would be interesting.
Yeah, and it would be a lunch because I think he, in the middle of the day, as much as I've researched and now
Mm-hmm.
know about Sigmund Freud, I think it would be a 14-hour lunch. He liked
Yeah.
to meet with everybody a long time, and I'd like to ask him all the things about, are you analyzing me right now? The people that used to find out that I was a psychologist in the bars, they would be like, "Oh, you're a psychologist, so you're analyzing me?" And I'm like,
Oh, gosh.
come on, we got to take you back to dating school because that is not a
Your
good pickup
husband didn't
line.
ask that, right?
No,
Okay, good.
no.
Okay, good.
But I think that would be great. A lunch with Sigmund Freud. I would have some white wine. I'm sure he would probably sip on some scotch or something and have a cigar. And we'd
that-
talk about interesting patients and clients that he's had and really kind of tap into some of those theories that people think are garbage now, but we still keep talking about
Yeah,
them.
we do. He's been gone a long time, too.
Yeah.
So I love this next question because I think it also gives a lot of insight into our guest. If you could have written a letter to the younger Alli, what might you have told her? In other words, a note to self. Say she's 9 or 10 years old.
I was pretty hard on myself as a kiddo. Competitive with others was absolutely a part of it, but the striving for perfection, and it probably had a little to do with love mom and dad, parenting styles. My parents had been successful, and I wanted to make sure that I also was successful. And so I was pretty hard on myself in sports. I was pretty hard on myself in school, and then when I got into high school, college, the right friend groups and places where I could really blossom, that pressure started to ease. But I think a little pressure is really good for people.
Oh, yeah,
I
absolutely.
was just maybe a little too hard on myself in that striving for perfection or superiority, if you will, when I was younger.
So this is our signature question. I love to ask all of our guests. 471 before, you got to ask this question. Well, maybe not those that are on the red carpet because I'd be afraid of their answer. But, God forbid you walk out of here, it's your last day on earth. How do you want to be remembered by family, friends, obviously customers that you may never actually talk to, but you've impacted their lives because of what you do? How do you want to be remembered?
That I left it all on the field.
There you go. I love it.
Yep.
There you go.
I think honestly, if you try your hardest in whatever aspect, as a mom, as a friend, as a daughter, as a business owner, a spouse, I think that is all you can ask of yourself and have others expect of you. So leave it all on the field.
Well, I appreciate you being on MoxieTalk with Kirt Jacobs. We finally got you on here.
I know, thank you.
Great.
This is great, and it exceeded all of my expectations.
Good.
So
good.
fun.
That's great. If you've been inspired by Alli's journey, we'd love to hear from you. Just go to MoxieTalk.com. We're on all your social media platforms. And until next time, I'm Kirt Jacobs. Thanks for watching.